Hello and welcome to the WLPGA snapshot on the United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR. My name's David Tyler, and today I've got Steve Corliss with me. And Steve and I are going to be talking about the program that the UNHCR is running, not just in Bangladesh, but globally, and also the work that the WLPGA is doing with the UNHCR on moving refugees away from traditional fuels like wood over to LPG. So Steve, welcome. And first of all, let me ask you, what is your role in Bangladesh? And maybe tell me a little bit about your history with the UNHCR.
Thank you, David. And first of all, pleasure to be with LWL leadership. Chance, I hope to talk more about the organization. We're in more than 120 countries worldwide. We're celebrating our 70th birthday next year, although I would say that the fact that refugees as a phenomenon in the world have persisted for 70 years is nothing to celebrate, but we're also proud of what we've been able to contribute over those years. Globally, there are over 26 million refugees. That's higher than the population of Australia. And they're also joined by another 50 million or so internally displaced people, other forcibly displaced people who are still within the borders of their own country, as well as stateless people who don't have enjoy the nationality of any state. Now, my role in Bangladesh is as the country representative. So I'm in charge of the operations. I'm based in the capital, Dhaka, but I move frequently between Dhaka and Cox's Bazar, where our camp-based operations are located. I'm what I call a UNHCR lifer. I joined in 1987. I've stayed with UNHCR continuously, except for a short break in the early 90s. And it's been a tremendous for me in and out, and really an opportunity to serve.
And being based in Dhaka, I suspect your role involves a great deal of time liaising with the Bangladesh government on some of the issues that the refugee camp has brought with it.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And we always emphasize that we're here in support of the government of Bangladesh. The government of Bangladesh took a very courageous decision to open the border and allow more than 740,000 refugees to enter the country within a short period of time. I should also say that it's not just the government, it's the local community in Cox's Bazar. They were the first to receive the refugees, sometimes in their own homes, often sharing the very little food that they had, because this is a particularly poor area of Bangladesh. And I think that bright spot of humanity in the history of Bangladesh is really remarkable. But we also have to understand that having a refugee population that's roughly 3 times the size of the local population in that particular area is placing tremendous strains on the community, socially, economically, and importantly for our conversation today, environmentally.
And perhaps you could just explain some of the challenges you've had, Steve, over the last couple of years introducing LPG into the camps, because I know when the refugees first arrived, it was having a devastating impact on the forestry areas around the camp.
Absolutely, it's true. You can see from satellite imagery of the area of the camp how within a period of weeks, this lush green forested area was denuded of all greenery, became completely brown. And you can see this from satellite images and aerial images. This was, first of all, created a very bad impression for the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh with the local people. The effect on those who made their livings through forestry and wildlife in the forest was devastating. The lack of ground cover also led to other environmental impacts, such as water pollution and the like. So really the introduction of LPG was the key strategy for us to regreen the camp. So distributing LPG to 100% of the refugee households, but also then engaging in a systematic process of replanting. So just in my time in Bangladesh, which is coming up on 2 years now, I've seen an enormous change. It is a country which has a long monsoon season, a long growing season, so the recovery has been amazing. Of course, the land is not as it was. What was once a forest reserve is now effectively a city, but the greening of the camp is truly remarkable. Introducing LPG, of course, had various things we had to consider. First of all, the supply chain, and that's where our partnership with to help suppliers and work for the distribution of LPG in the camps, training people to use it in a safe way. We think it is safer than firewood, for example, but also to make sure that we have a pathway to sustainability. And this is where some of the pilots that we're experimenting with now, such as the use of pressure cookers, come in, because it is an expensive undertaking, but our calculation is that the cost savings are in the end going to be greater than the cost expenditure on LPG. I could say a few words if you want about why we think this kind of fuel is important.
Yes, please.
I'll go ahead then. Yes, so when people people need fuel to cook. Let's be clear about that. What the international community through the World Food Program does at the beginning of any emergency is they distribute dry rations. So wheat flour, pulses, cooking oil, and then the salt, basically 3-4 basic commodities. Then it's up to the people to figure out how to cook it. If you don't give any fuel, they have to find fire. So people who are collecting firewood are then unable to do other things, to earn an income through other sorts of activities or take care of their children. Or if their children accompany them, their children are not involved in other activities such as education. While they're outside of the camp looking for firewood, they're going to come into contact with the local community. This can create tensions with the local community, and there also has been the case in many refugee operations of women in particular being subject to sexual violence while they're outside the camp. If you don't have enough fuel to cook those rations, maybe you'll have to sell part of those rations to cook your food. This means you eat less, this means nutrition is lower, and of course the well-known impact of indoor cooking is on health and respiration and the diseases that go along with that. So we see clean cooking and sustainable cooking approaches as really being at the center of everything we do, from protection and safety to education, to security, to livelihoods and health.
So it sounds like you're having to put some football or soccer pitches up in the camps, and maybe some learning centers to occupy the children who are otherwise collecting wood.
Yes, that's absolutely right. It is a challenge and it has become even more of a challenge during the COVID-19 pandemic, as you can imagine, just as in every other country in the world. Bangladesh has suspended education in schools. Slowly we're coming back to that. The same is true in the camp. But we have programs for children. I think when people reflect on what a refugee program means, they do focus on the food commodities and that heavy lifting that you need to do to keep people alive. But I would say the software components of bringing children together, having them share their experiences, engaging in sports activities, the situation they find themselves in today is very important. So I think this contribution that we make of allowing families to be able to cook and supporting them in that creates much more space for those activities to take place.
And just on the cooking aspect, Steve, I read in a report earlier this year, I think it was the IUCN report. Mm-hmm. They looked at what was called the Food Diversity Index, that the refugees, there was a change in that, insofar as that when you cook with LPG, you can actually cook with more healthy foods, more variety of foods, and your vitamin intake goes up, and you end up with a healthier refugee, which is an astonishing fact, because in the past, we've always thought, yes, LPG is a lot cleaner and a lot healthier, but we've never actually thought about this dietary impact as well. So that's a really interesting fact that's come out of this program that you've been doing.
Yeah. As I said, just the mere fact that people don't have to take their time to be out looking for firewood or don't have to sell their rations, that already has a positive nutritional impact. But when we train the refugees, we don't only train them on safety in relation to LPG, we also show them how they can use this equipment to cook their meals, because it's new. Let's face it, it's a new technology for them. But surprisingly, the uptake is quite smooth. The appreciation is very high. And as you say, with a heat source that you can regulate and pace and cook different aspects of the meal separately, it makes a huge contribution to their ability to have dietary diversity.
Let's come back to the local community, because I guess there must be some degree of envy and jealousy when they look over the fence and see what's happening inside to what they had before the refugees arrived. So go back to this issue of managing the relationship between the local community and the refugee community. Did you actually support in any way the local community in this program?
Yes, target households in the local community. This is an immediate area surrounding the camp. So we have introduced LPG distribution. I wish I had the thing so I give you the correct information. I believe we're distributing as UNHCR to 10,000 host community households, and our partner IOM is also contributing LPG to a number. We want to make it sustainable, so it's fully funded for the first year, and I think we have, if I could get the enormous number of refills we've done for the refugees. It's about 1.4 million of 100,000 that we're serving. 68,000 of those, however, are for the host community. And we want to expand that. It will depend on funding and also a pathway, sort of an exit strategy for sustainability. But the uptake of LPG in the host community is also quite strong. And we also know that it's having a positive impact in all of the areas that I mentioned before with the host community as well.
Right. And I suppose we all wish and hope that the refugees will eventually go home, and hopefully they can take this this knowledge of cooking with LPG back to their base countries. Tell me, is there a long-term vision within the UNHCR to expand this program to other camps in other parts of the world that are using wood?
Yes, I think this experience is an important one for us. It was absolutely, I would say, in Bangladesh, critical. We didn't have another option. The wood was gone within a relatively short period of time. And so if we hadn't been able to come up with another option, we would be buying wood elsewhere in the country, shipping it in. We were using compressed rice husks also, but that was creating other problems for supply of different commodities within Bangladesh, and was creating some level of tension. So we had to go with LPG. But I previously was serving in our operation in Tanzania, and I really had this option at that time because it was precisely the same problem. A lot more land, I must say, around those refugee camps, but the refugees were having to forage far and wide, mothers and children mainly, to collect firewood. And while they were out of the camp, they were exposed to violence. They were exposed to danger. They were causing environmental harm, because those camps as well are in nature reserves for the most part, and tension with the local community. So I think this is something we want to explore. Sustainability is a key issue. But the technical advice that we're having from your association is being very helpful to us in understanding how to do this in the most efficient and effective and practical way possible.
Steve, that's really good to hear, and it's probably a good time to draw this conversation to a conclusion by me saying, look, we like you our association operates in over 120 countries as well, and we have over 300 members all over the world willing to help whenever you ask. And I know a couple of our members in Bangladesh have done that. They've been supplying the LPG into the camps, and long may that continue. So I'd just like to, on behalf of the WLPGA, like to thank you, Steve, for giving up your time today and contributing to this snapshot. And thank you for all your organisation support to what I think we all believe is a wonderful goal, to move people away from wood. Not just in Bangladesh, not just in other refugee camps, but for the other 3 billion people in the world who are burning wood. We hope we can make that transition. So I'll say thank you, and I'll give you one last opportunity to have a sum up, and then we'll close the snapshot. Thanks, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, David. Thank you to WLPGA for all of the support that you've provided to us. We've been an observer with the association since 2018. We have an agreement that provides a good framework for our collaboration. I know you personally have been on the ground in Cox's Bazar, so you've seen the challenges that we face and the tasks that we've undertaken. And I don't think we could have done it without you. So to you and your members, I really want to thank you so much for your support. And we do look forward to that collaboration in the future, because it has, as I said, immeasurable benefits for refugee populations. As I said, from protection to health, to livelihoods, to nutrition, to education. It's really at the fulcrum of many of the concerns that we have for refugees in the world. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve. And thank you all for watching this snapshot. And we look forward to seeing you all again. Good night.